everyone, and welcome to the SoCal Summer Swing Out podcast. The music you are currently listening to is called Dances in the Night by Papa D, a fellow swing dancer, musician, artist, and friend. You can find all links for streaming, socials, and videos down below. Make sure to go and support him. Now let's get into the episode.
All right. Hello, SoCal Summer Swing Out listeners. My name is Paul, not Andre. Andre asked me to be a guest host on his podcast, and I thought, hey, that would be a lot of fun. And he asked me to pick any guest that I wanted. And so I've just recently been working with Calvin also, but I mean, I've been a very, very big fan of Calvin Liu for a very long time. And so I was like, I'm going to interview him. That would be really cool. And so this is Calvin and Paul on SoCal Summer Swing Out.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Very excited. I love chatting and talking about whatever.
So I guess we should get started with an introduction to you. And rather than kind of prepping an introduction and going through your list of achievements or things that you're involved in, we figured, and I think Andre does it the same way, is I'd love for you to introduce yourself as however, whatever you want people to know about you and your place in the dance community or the world. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Calvin Liu. I am from the Bay Area, almost born and raised. Pretty much the Bay Area my whole life, as far as I have memories of, and been dancing for I think going on 10 years. I think this is my like 10-year Lindyversary sometime around this time. Yeah, dancing in my like day-to-day, I'm like a game designer for at a mobile game company. So I always joke to people that I make games during the day and I dance and teach dance during the evenings. And which means I have fun just all the time. I feel very lucky, very privileged to be able to say that, and like that I like basically am very like have a very, very like nice day to day, along with like having like, you know, like what is it, like events and things to look forward to, like big events that like spike the amount of happiness and joy I have. But also I just feel very blessed to have, lots of like day to day happiness and joy in what I do, where I live, who I hang out with, and the dancing I get to do here. The Bay Area dancing is really great.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And you are in Oakland.
Yeah.
I know this because I drove to your house for practice.
Yeah, and you're in Sacramento now.
I am a NorCal transplant, which is so I just drove up to Eureka last weekend, and I was like, oh, this isn't even NorCal. This is like in the center of but it's NorCal to anybody in LA. So
that's true. I've never even been up to Eureka, and I've lived in California my whole life.
Driving up there is beautiful. Highly recommend anyone you get a chance to drive through the redwoods, please do it. But anyways, yeah, I'm excited to be up here and be involved. I've already met so many wonderful Bay Area dancers, and of course Sacramento. I knew a few people in Sacramento already, but it's funny how Bay Area dancers and SoCal dancers, I just don't feel like we've mixed and mingled too much because everyone's like happy with their own scene.
That's true. I feel like both scenes are very bustling, which I think is a really great thing. But yeah, it does mean that you don't need to like travel as much. I do kind of feel like after the pandemic, one of the things that the Bay Area lost after the pandemic was the 920 special in San Francisco. And I don't know if it's my imagination or maybe it was just like, kind of coming back, people were excited to travel. But I think with less dancing around, people are just more excited to travel and go further out. and so more of the kind of like larger Bay Area scene has kind of like come together.
Hmm.
As opposed to like, I think I think it's not too controversial to say that if you have a ton of dancing right in your backyard, then you don't really feel like you need to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Versus if you have like, oh, just the one spot and you're like, oh, I want to go dancing twice a week. Like maybe I'll drive up to Sacramento, or maybe I'll drive down to down to
Wednesday night hop
Wednesday Night Hop or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. We are, I feel like, getting ahead of ourselves because I want to definitely want to nerd out about all this stuff. But first, I want to get to know you a little more as far as your background. Even before dancing, if you can kind of paint a picture of what it was like to grow up as Calvin, and then maybe how that fed into getting involved in the arts and dance and that sort of thing.
Yeah. What a fascinating question. I don't think I've ever really thought about that. I think partially also because dancing kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Okay.
Um, I never really had any exposure to dancing, or really, I think anything in that space. I think my mom was a little bit of an artist, with I think like paints and ceramics. But aside from that, I was mostly just a nerd and like a gamer. I knew when I went to college that I wanted to make video games. I was actually very honest about that in my college application to UC Berkeley. I was like, hey, UC Berkeley, if you accept me as a student, I will try to make video games. That's what I'm going to do with my life. Please accept me. And then they did. So I guess they thought that was a worthwhile enough endeavor. And then,
So
yeah,
video gaming was always the thing that you were looking for, though, looking towards.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm very lucky that I was able to jump right into being a game designer, but I initially went for a more of a software engineering route.
Okay.
When I started out, that was like, oh, because I want to like work on games, and then later on decided like, oh wait, I actually want to like design games. I don't want to just like program for them. Um, but yeah, and then it was during college that I discovered Lindy Hop by kind of going to this club on campus. Though I will say, me starting Lindy Hop is kind of a funny story because basically the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I got really into somehow, I don't even know how, but I got really into watching YouTube videos of this dance, this amazing dance. I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I got so obsessed. I was watching these
Oh, I
videos
remember.
the whole time. Yeah. And that dance was called West Coast Swing. I thought it was so cool that I looked up I looked up West Coast Swing UC Berkeley to see if I could find it. And I found Lindy on Sproul, which did East Coast Swing, like had East Coast Swing as on the list of, in their description. And I was like, wow, those two are probably the same thing or mostly the same. And yeah, so that's how that happened.
I love that. It's like that just goes to prove the whole rising tides raises all ships thing. Like it's like if West Coast Swing gets like I feel like their exposure on TikTok right now is actually adding dancers to Lindy Hopper's scenes as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I feel like I don't know if it's just my imagination or what, but I feel like there's just maybe I think also I went to a dance like not dance school. A lot of people describe said that at UC Berkeley there was a lot of dancing like between like kind of like hip hop, urban, and then like partner dances and stuff like that. But there was just like a lot of opportunities for dancing. But I feel like I've like become more and more aware of just like I don't know how much dancing has entered like kind of like just like I don't know. I feel like with the ad like starting with when Fortnite dances became popular, just like seeing people dance, I was just like seeing people do forms of dance, like just moving their bodies to music more often, just everywhere I go. Just like, and I don't know. I think
That's
part
so
of it is also
awesome.
that it's so easy to consume online, but yeah, I do feel like a lot of people are dancing, and I love the idea of what you said of this rising tide raises all ships because yeah, that's how I started, and I like the people that I met at that club enough that I came back basically every week. Even though I will say I wasn't too excited about the
You
music at first.
yeah, did you walk in and you were like, what no, yeah, no.
And I was like, oh, this music is so old timey.
Feel
But
like you're playing
now I have a much
Bioshock.
better, yeah. Now I have much more of an appreciation for it. I grew. I think I will say, and this affects how I think about dance nowadays. I grew to love the people before I grew to love like even the dance or the music.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of what brought me in first, especially as like a college student.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And yes, I definitely want to nerd out about those things. Um, well, cool. So you found the Lindy Hop Club at UC Berkeley.
Hmm.
And is that for shout outs wise, what's the name of the club there? Is it just
I
the
think,
swing dance club?
yeah, I think it's called. I believe the club is called Lindy on Sproul.
Lindy
Um,
on Sprout. Okay.
yeah, which is also the name of their dance that they do outdoors on Sproul Plaza every Saturday morning. Um,
Okay.
which is like a great way to like get people's attention. Uh, and Lindy on Sproul had a reputation. I think this chain has unfortunately been broken, but they like I remember we had like a run when I was first studying, they were like, oh, we have like a running streak for like however many years. We have like never missed a Saturday, rain, shine, or holiday. Um,
That's awesome.
and I was like, oh my goodness, like how many holidays have fallen on random Saturdays? So like there's always at least one person who brings the speaker out to Sproul and plays music, even if no
Somebody's
one's
just out there
there.
solo jazzing on.
Yeah, so I remember
Amazing.
that was a point of pride. But yeah, there's Lindy on Sproul, I think, which is the name of the organization. But then they also run a class called Swing that they called Swing Cal. I think that still runs, I believe. Where people this is actually a great system that I think UC Berkeley has, part of their like democratic education at Cal. Like students can like take these classes which are taught by other students and actually get like college credit for them.
That's so
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and
What an
it's a
awesome
great way to
program.
get people in. It's a great way to get people in, and also and it's fun, and then also like kind of because there is like this like you get a college
Incentive.
credit. Yeah, like part of it, like people will actually show up with good attendance to your series class. You can actually teach a whole semester of like dance lessons that is progressive. It's amazing. It's a great system.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So, before we move completely away from the game development stuff that you was there a type of game or a favorite game of yours that really inspired you to move into that path, coming from a fellow gamer? We're gonna have some game representation on Andre's podcast here. Gamer representation.
Yeah, you know what I feel? There aren't enough gamers online. The internet really needs more
More
gamers.
gamers.
Come on,
Even
gamers,
among
where
Lindy
are
Hoppers.
you?
Come on, where are you?
No, yeah, I enjoyed a lot of games growing up. Especially now I'm always a big fan of like cooperative games. Um, I will say, working in mobile games now, I had someone tell me this before also. Uh, Someone had once said, kind of giving career advice, don't work on your favorite game because then it becomes work. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, I think there's like a case to be made for like, indie developers working on their dream game and how that can be a great success story. But I do think that there is also some risk there. And I will say working on mobile games is very fun because uh at least I haven't worked in any other part of the game industry. Mobile games seems to be very chill, or at least when I'm working
Really?
there,
Okay.
there's like to me, mobile games have less of this like, I don't know, you're a AAA studio and you're like, we're releasing this game, you know, Q3 of 2024, and you're
Right.
like, well, we're a year out, but we said it and people are excited. Guess it has to be. Whereas I think mobile games are a little bit, like, I don't know, like no one really like there's not as much attention about them. The timelines and deadlines don't feel
It's not like
quite
there's a whole bunch
so.
of press about mobile games. I mean, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
some, but
yeah. But I feel like, there's maybe less crunch because like, the development is a little bit more iterative in that way.
Mhm.
where you kind of just like, and you kind of like, yeah, you kind of release on your own timeline. I know a lot of mobile games are not very good about managing like patch notes about any of their updates. Just kind of like just like secretly update things, and like no one's the wiser, and they don't tell. The plenty of mobile games don't really like, yeah, don't really say that much about what they're updating. Um, especially early on in their
I've
lives.
never even thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, from a developer's perspective, that's so nice to not have like, I don't know, a looming 1 year deadline, from now, that like, oh, well, I mean, this game is like 1 year out from, like, we got, obviously there's tons of work to do, but like I guess we've just settled that we must release Q3 2024 because we said it.
So
Um
is this why when you go into the breakaway you have to watch a 20-second ad before you go into the dance? So
yeah, I'm trying to put as much monetization. No,
uh
I do think game development and being a game designer does, and we could talk about this more later, also like does actually affect a lot of how I think about both dancing and also like dance organizing.
yeah, well, why don't we I'm very excited to nerd out about that. So let's revisit that in a moment, but let's get to, so how did you get then from the space of going to the weekly dance at Berkeley to then being a part of the greater dance scene, and then eventually working on and yeah, being a dance organizer with the Switch and Breakaway and maybe some other things I don't know about yet.
Yeah. So started dancing weekly at UC Berkeley. And then it was didn't really become involved at that greater scene until I think the Breakaway was opening up in Oakland.
Okay.
And they needed teachers for that. And so they asked Samantha Nguyen, who's my very good friend. And actually, I think we were planning, because this is like senior year we're graduating. I think we were planning to live together. Maybe we hadn't quite yet, or maybe we hadn't talked about it yet. But anyways, they asked her to teach there, and then so she asked me if I wanted to teach there with her because we were both going to graduate and gonna like enter this, you know, finished with college, what's happening now world together. And yeah, that's how I got into like teaching, or like let's say being paid as a teacher, in like kind of like the wider scene.
Okay,
And then
cool.
started doing that, basically taught in the Bay Area. And then at some point, I don't really remember the order of these things. At some point, the Dancers Den, run by Gina Bromley, was going away, or Gina Bromley were moving down to SoCal. I think this was way later. I'm
That's
jumping
fine.
around.
No,
And so they like handed it to me and Sam, so we took over running that. Um, I was like brought on to 920 on their like teaching roster. Uh, and then Carrie Westbrook had this idea for for a Lindy Hop workshop about switching, and so asked me, Samantha Nguyen, and Arendis Tarakcha to organize it with her, and then like, which was Carrie was so good at organizing that event. Well, I think she's good at organizing a ton of events, but like the three of us had never organized anything like that before, a year once a year event.
mhm.
But she had a ton of experience, and basically like in that 1 year, like I guess basically organized the whole thing. Like she had to basically manage every single aspect of it because
Uh-huh.
the three of us like didn't like know where to start with anything. And then like starting the year after that, we were able to like, help so much more because we were like the whole time we were like, oh, and then this is how this works, and this is how booking teachers works, and this is how booking bands works, and then this is how we'll like get a venue and like finances and registration, competitions, all that kind of stuff. Um, so basically picked it up all from her, all
Cool.
my organizing skills learned from the master. But yeah, basically I think like just kind of happened slowly over time. I think being, you know, being the main things contributing to that, I think were just like being around, being like what is it? Like uh
available, like
being available, but then also I guess being like, like kind of being like I think I was like a quick learner with the
okay,
dance, and so I think
being really good, we get it done.
no, but I think in this way, I think also for me, uh being primarily a follower uh was a boon in multiple interesting ways, like some of which are maybe more obvious, um what is it, like being like standing out, or like being involved with the Switch workshop, because I was like, clearly I was doing dancing both roles. But also I definitely have like some thoughts about, like, I remember this is the first time, I think the first time I made finals in a competition ever, which was as a follower. I've only ever competed as a follower.
Mhm.
Um, and aside from like Switch dancing or this one random time, that's something else. Uh, um, I made finals in a competition, and somebody came up to me. This guy came up to me and was like, "Wow, you did so great out there. I can't imagine how good of a leader you must be." And then walked away. And I was like, "Wow, I just gave like so much bonus prestige because I'm definitely not as good a leader
Somebody
as I
think
am a
you're
follower." Yeah.
dancing the alternative.
Yeah.
This
I
is
was
just
like,
your alternative
wow.
role.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, like I just gave like double prestige here. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know how much of that was the contributor. But I think, like being available, and then like being seen, and then being known in the scene.
For
Uh
those viewers out there, Calvin also is a very good lead. I don't know if you were back then, but you are all now, at least, a very good lead.
Thank you. I learned on the dance floor.
That's so funny. Yeah, and I guess we should state too that, like, on Calvin's dance website it says what it's the guy that likes to follow or something like that. It's just a very
Yeah.
so yeah, incredible follow. It's so fun. Well, cool. So the Switch Workshop, then, is there any like insider information about, like, hey, is that ever coming back, or is that kind of a we've
Ooh, insider information. Yeah, I would love to bring it back. The Bay Area scene, I think, is actually really coming together. The I think a lot of people are gathering around now to bring back first, and I think this is correct, to focus on this first, to bring out Swinging at the Savoy
Mhm.
back to the Bay Area. So I think there's like a group of people. From what I've heard, it's a lot of like really enthusiastic new blood. People who haven't done, not new blood in terms of dancing necessarily, but people who haven't done that much organizing, or especially haven't done, maybe organized an event that large
Mhm.
before. And so I think it'll be really good for the Bay Area, to have these folks put together, this big thing, and to bring back, a big workshop back to the Bay Area. But I think that's like
That's step
priority
one.
numero uno, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would love to. I think people would be excited about it, and I've talked to people at the breakaway too, kind of casually. People would be excited to like bring back the Switch and things like that. Um,
Cool.
but also the organizers of the Switch themselves, like, were kind of a little bit more spread out than we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Carrie actually moved away even before, the pandemic. But even then, of the other organizers, I'm up here in Oakland. Sam's now down in the South Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and two of the other organizers are a little bit further away now, also. So, like, I think the process of bringing back the Switch, similar to Swing at the Savoy, will kind of have to come a little bit from the ground up.
Yeah.
But I mean, if slash when that happens, I'll definitely be involved.
It's so cool to see how the seeds that at least I think to some degree the seeds that you guys planted and other people around the community have now, like I feel like Switch dancing is a very normalized thing now, at least in some parts of the world. Like there's a Switch competition at Camp Hollywood. That's not always been the case.
I
So
know, it's awesome. I love there are some really amazing people, content I see people doing like Switch dancing in both Lindy Hop and West Coast Swing. Um uh that I think is just like very cool, in the sense that it kind of is like pushing switch dancing almost into this like new territory of like being its own separate thing that isn't just like the combination or like the half and half of two other things,
Mm.
but like is actually like a third thing.
Yeah, interesting.
It's uh gestalt, I think is the term, like greater than the sum of its parts. If I use like a smart smart person word.
What is the word?
Gestalt.
Gestalt. Okay.
I think so. One of my majors was psychology, and I think I learned that there.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm sorry if that's incorrect, internet.
We need the fact checkers to comment in the comments below.
Yeah. But it's really great. I'd love to see where Switchity has gone. It's interesting for me because, you know, I even helped um start the Switch or organize the Switch workshop, but I've actually never really thought of myself that much of a Switch dancer. And
Oh, interesting.
especially not in this way. Actually, I'd say actually a lot of the times that I like Switch dance is actually like dancing as one role for a whole song and then dancing as the other role for the whole song with that same person right after. Um,
Okay.
and so like I almost do more like enjoying the two roles separately than I do actually switching. Though I do also, you know, get opportunities to switch. And of course, I think a lot of it, I think people started calling me a switch dancer sooner than I like identified as a switch dancer. Because I think in my perspective, I was initially just a guy who preferred to follow. And then I think the reality of being that meant that I was asked to lead a lot on the
It was
dance floor.
back to that same conversation of the
Yeah, and I've had in my life a lot of like, you know, especially when switch dancing was like first uh like when I was trying to see it more around me for the first time, a lot of like unintentional switch dances where I would like ask, you know, like a male presenting person to dance and then like I would be following and then like halfway through it suddenly become a switch dance. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this, but like cool, I will roll with it.
Mhm.
And honestly, I didn't mind. I'm glad that more people are like, you know, are like forthcoming about wanting to switch dance or wanting to dance in one role with
Yeah.
each other. But at the time, I was like very like, oh, I'm just so happy to see that people are like not only like willing to actively entertain it, like willing to actively entertain dancing both roles. And so it's like, oh, if I can be someone's like, you know, first try at like following, you know, then you know, like if I lead them and it's like first time to following, like then that's great. I actually really love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So, I mean, and it's so interesting. I actually let's shift gears a little bit here, still kind of in the same vein, but start to jump into teaching a little bit. Um, I I've heard that I'm not even sure if it was 920 or where the dancing or where the teaching happened this way, but there used to be a lot of everybody leads, everybody follows curriculum. And I was curious to get your take on that as far as because I definitely have experienced when I go to the Bay Area, there are a lot more people that do both roles. Um, and I was curious if you like, yeah, what your take was on that, if you found that's effective or if it's just kind of a different way to approach or, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember there was a period in my time where I was thinking about where I was like discussing that a lot with other people, other teachers around me. Yeah, I've mostly seen it for kind of like one-off classes.
Okay.
Especially I saw a lot of people experiment with it with taster classes. I don't think we've ever had a like whole curriculum that kind of had it integrated. And yeah, I think it's interesting. I do think that it has its pros and cons. One thing I will say, kind of going a little bit off topic on this, that I think was very entertaining was at UC Berkeley. I remember when year I graduated, we had a like jam for all of the like everyone in the club who was like counted as a mentor. Basically,
Mhm.
basically anyone who like finished the entire curriculum that SwingCal had to offer, which was 2 semesters. You took beginner 1 and then beginner 2, and then you had like completed the Lindy Hop. There was no more Lindy Hop to learn. Um, uh, but it was really interesting because everyone was comfortable leading and following, and I think part of that was cultural. But I think also an interesting contributor to that I've always like hypothesized was that because SwingCal ended at B1 and B2, and because there was no more classes to
It
take
went
after
back.
1 year, there was like maybe even almost out of like boredom, you know, like or just kind of out of like availability, more people started to like do both roles. Um,
That's
but
fascinating.
like plus kind of like the cultural openness to it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I've had lots of conversations about, these kinds of things. I definitely think there's something like idyllic and nice about either kind of like everybody leads, everybody follows, or like just encouraging people to try out both roles in their entirety. I remember someone once during these discussions like pitched the idea of like a level 1 curriculum being like, oh, you must take, these 3 months of level 1, 8 count, 6 count, and Charleston, plus one of those months again as the other role before you can
Hmm.
move into level 2. Um, just kind of like, you know, like basically like institutionalizing kind of like, like kind of very bare level of like knowing both roles.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think the there are also kind of like there are enough kind of like logistically tricky things about making it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, especially I think for people for whom like dancing like maybe like doesn't like the people who have a harder time picking things up in taster lessons, like or maybe like slower to pick up the dance.
Hmm.
um I think there are lots of like logistical issues to warrant not doing it. So I don't know, I think the place that we've landed, I think, is a little bit closer to like, let's focus on the cultural aspect of like anyone can lead, anyone can follow, rather than like using everyone must lead and follow
Hmm.
to kind of like force that situation. I think there's been a little bit more of a like, can we like this is the ultimate situation we want, which is that everyone can lead, everyone can follow, and everyone's
Just
cool about it.
get it so that everybody is comfortable with whatever choice they make for the
Yeah,
class. Yeah.
yeah, and I think like the idea that like, oh, if you make everyone take at least one lesson during it, then like on the social dance floor, then at least you can be guaranteed that like
Yeah.
everyone has at least seen it before, and that's nice. Um, but yeah, I think right now a lot of what I see is kind of like is is there an easier way to get at that?
Hmm.
But I don't know. It is tricky. I actually just recently in Australia, and I haven't felt this. Actually, maybe I feel this semi regularly. I don't know. I had this like kind of like trepidation. I think being in another country, went to the Sydney dance scene, and not that anything happened or that like they weren't welcoming or anything like that, but I led for like the first like 80% of the dance because I was kind of like scared to ask a guy or anyone I saw who was leading um to if I could follow.
Hmm.
And there wasn't like, yeah, I don't know. And like, I don't know, would have knowing that there was like a lesson right beforehand that was like everybody leads, everybody follows, like have like made me more comfortable. I don't know. I wasn't even there for the lesson, so it wouldn't even help me in this case. So, but
Yeah.
I recognize the desires when people talk about everybody leads, everybody follows. I do think it is like a real desire
Hmm.
that people have. But yeah, unclear to me if it is a great solution, if it's a solution that will work kind
Hmm.
of everywhere you go.
Yeah, Daisy and I were talking about it recently for because we just started teaching Balboa, and we were like, is this like let's at least take a look at this to see. But I was like, I'm so uncomfortable with teaching and everybody leads, everybody follows, just logistically wise. I'm like, how do we do a rotation? That I was like, let's go to what we know and then maybe discuss it down the road or something. So because
Yeah.
I mean, even with because Balboa, it's like you've got the same footwork even. So it's like, was
Hmm.
there a, but yeah, I was just curious to pick your brain about that and to see if you had any experience with it being good or bad
Yeah, I
or
will say that I like if any of so I'm the teacher coordinator at the Breakaway now. If any of my teachers want to explore something like that, I would say absolutely go for it because like one, I think it's also like a really great teaching exercise.
Mhm.
And also I do think something that I remember someone had said this like concept we had talked about once at a like teacher workshop with at Wednesday Hop that they had hosted. Um, and I don't know if this is quite exactly the idea that they were talking about, or if I kind of just spun it into a slightly different thing. But I think there's something really nice about the idea that like if for up to a certain amount, if a lot of the teachers here are teaching slightly differently, and we don't all like have one canonically what we all believe is like the one canonically best way to teach,
Mhm.
um, then we actually like might be able to gain something really useful out of that, right? Like if there's like, I don't know, if there's like a way of teaching that like these are hypotheticals, like hits eight, works really well for 80% of your like types of learners and like not good for the other 20%. And then there's like another way to teach is that like captures only 50%, but it's a different 50%. Then like if everyone teaches the way that like is canonically the best, like hits 80%, those 20% of people are like totally left out forever out of the dance scene for like their as long as they're here, versus if you have like teachers who kind of teach in slightly different styles and like everyone has their own opinion. I don't know, I think there's some validity to that, and so I like
I yeah,
encourage
I'd
my teachers
agree.
to kind of discover their own values and like figure things out and work together and like share information, but also like it's okay and maybe good that like teachers do teach differently from each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I you just reminded me as you were talking about that. I remember taking it was years and years ago, but going to a workshop weekend and I was like, oh, I was just talking to some friends and like I really did not enjoy the class. And they were like the people that I was talking to were like, "Oh, they're my favorite instructors here." And I was like, "Oh." It's like yeah, it really depends on your own personal experience too. So that's a good
Mm-hmm.
thing to remember when teaching and planning for that sort of thing. I'd love to nerd out more about teaching just because I don't think there's a lot of discussion that's just like out in the open about teaching Lindy Hop and that sort of thing. Um, do you have like go-to ideas or do you have ideas the hot takes? What are the Calvin hot takes about teaching?
Do I have hot takes about teaching? Wow, um,
I
especially as oh, sorry, what?
No, I was just you've already hit on one of like, hey, we don't have to have like a homogenized. I feel like that's a hot take, and I mean maybe not a hot take, but it's a good perspective I think to have for sure.
Yeah, I think I don't think I have too many hot takes. I think my takes honestly have probably softened over time.
Okay.
I probably had more like used to have hotter takes than I do now. But I think especially having an opportunity to be in uh a teacher coordinator perspective, um like it's at least in like teaching style, I've tried to like I think in my normal life I'm usually so like I want to control and understand and like have oversight over everything. I'm trying to like recognize that teacher coordinating is a space where I should let go a lot of that.
Hmm.
Actually I will say my actually here's my hot take about as a teacher coordinator. I will say is I love to hire people who are like, let me put this another way. I if I hire you as a teacher, I will also pay attention to what you're doing on the dance floor after teaching class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and things like that. I think that to me is like ended up being a larger, like a more important part of like the of like teachers and teacher coordinating than I expected. I realized that like I would like rather than have, especially for like, for local organizing, on level one, level two, these like kind of newer dancers, instead of having like really, really, really great teachers, I would rather have a like kind of like quote unquote mediocre teacher who's like at the breakaway every week, even when they're not teaching, and like dancing with those students, even when they're not, their current students, and like, someone who the students can like regularly see and look up to, and like, you know and to some extent, like, and view them as like a role model in terms of like what they see them doing, on the dance floor, like, being, interacting and being social and having a good time, and asking people to dance. um I recognize that like the dance floor space is also like a personal space for people, right? Is like their right to like enjoy themselves however they want. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I feel like as a teacher, or like as a teacher coordinator, and as someone who's like trying to think about like, oh, the venue, I'm more excited to hire people who are, for example, more extroverted, that like on the social dance floor, to be
Mm-hmm.
teachers. I do think that like that is another boon to add to their like, teacher like accreditation,
Yeah.
is that like they are out there on the dance floor, having a blast, being visible in front of their students, dancing, interacting with their students, dancing, interacting with people who aren't their students, while dancing, being part of, the Shim Sham every week, like, all these kinds of things. I feel like that has been more important to me as a teacher coordinator than I expected.
It's funny. I feel like you're actually helping me solve this like idea of. So I've been thinking about putting on like a workshop weekend for like kind of a teacher's symposium thing, and just in my brain I automatically go, oh well, we'll have like teacher classes, but also have organizer classes and that sort of thing. And I'm like, wait, those are not the same thing, Paul, which they're not. But I think you make a great point that like as a scene leader or as a teacher, there's a oftentimes so much more crossover with like leadership in general as a scene leader, and even and that I feel like sometimes just bleeds over then into organizing and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I think it's I mean, I feel like there's this idea that like, the people that we like respect the most in the dance scene shouldn't just necessarily be the best dancers, right? They should also be good people.
mhm.
I think we found that, to be very important in the Lindy Hop community, that like that the people we respect are also good people. Um, but I think like in that way, yeah, there are so many aspects of being a teacher, especially at a local scene, that just go beyond just like, are you a good, like, do you disseminate dance information to your students in the most efficient way? Um, like, being a teacher is like being for me, like, being a teacher is like being a role model. And so even though it's interesting that the types of skills, like the types of skills I look for assigning teachers to various things is like kind of like different for each level. In a lot of ways, I do think that like is the like level one is the class that where I care about. I'm like the most particular about who's teaching it,
Yeah.
as opposed to like maybe another way of like another way of thinking about it would be like, oh, the higher the level of the class, the more I care about the teachers who are teaching it. But for me, it's kind of like
It's the
level one, yeah, is kind of the place where I'm most not quite the taster, but level one is the
yeah,
place
like
where,
it's just it goes back to your experience looking for West Coast swing, and like if you didn't have a good experience on those first couple times, would you be a Lindy Hopper today? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think what is it? not that I don't think this is a hot take because I don't think I wouldn't say that like other teachers don't think about this or anything like
Mhm.
that. I think, but I think we should strive for, you know, I love to say that I want to strive for making, as a when I am being a teacher rather than a teacher coordinator, making dancers who are good community members and good people along with being good dancers.
Yeah. No, and I think that it really shows with a place like the Breakaway. And I know you're not like the sole person responsible for that, but like when I walked into the Breakaway, it felt just like home, like my like Lindy Groove. I think personally, Lance and Vicky at Lindy Groove, they've done such a good job cultivating this like people first mentality. Like they're like that place is just a beautiful and welcoming place to dance. And I it was so cool walking into the Breakaway because I was like, oh, this is the Bay Area Lindy Groove. I found it. This is so cool. And so like props to your entire team because that I think it feels that way.
That's very
So
sweet. That's such a sweet compliment. Because I've also been to Lindy Groove, and I agree, it is amazing. Also, I will say this is totally random. When I remember going to the Lindy Groove for the first time, does the like shape of the room also kind of remind you of like the
no,
Breakaway?
I
You
was
know,
gonna
like
say
the
yeah.
space also kind of just like, I don't know, like I think everything you're saying is right. And also, visually, the room shape kind of reminds me, kind of, because,
Yeah,
makes me feel
100%.
at home.
Yep, 100%. That's awesome.
Great. I'm glad I'm not the only one who had that thought.
Yeah, no, it like tickled me. Like as I walked in, I was like, oh, it's home. I'm home. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. I would like to dig in just for the last few minutes here, as to like I know, and for those that are listening, if you don't know, Calvin, I think, at least from an outside perspective, works really really hard at like lifting up the community and doing things for the dance community. And I'm curious to you, why? What does the dance community mean to you?
Wow, what a deep question. Honestly, I think first of all, and I think this is important, like this is an important aspect of it to me, is that like I think it is fun and fulfilling for me. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but like, I think I understand that like, I totally get that like not everyone who's active in a community like like necessarily needs to or must become like kind of like an organizer of that community.
Mhm.
And I think in this way, like it kind of feels, I do think it's kind of like fun and fulfilling to take on this role, and kind of help out where I can, where I'm able to, and also to not overextend myself, into the place where it ceases to become fun and fulfilling, because then I would just burn myself out, and then I would also then stop.
Mhm.
Um, and so like like God bless all the people at the Breakaway who have let me take on teacher coordinating and like actively not do anything else outside of teacher coordinating.
That's awesome.
Because I'm like, hey, like this is what I'm going to focus on. I think I'll do best if I focus on it. And everyone's been like, cool, that's great. Let us know how we can support you. I'm like, this is the best. You're all amazing. Um, but no, I think it's like, I think, dancing for me has been such a beautiful and important part of my life. Selfishly, I want there to be lots of dancing in the Bay Area. And so, you know, I want to help make that happen. And I think, it's like what is it? I think, yeah, the a lot of the like people centric aspects of dancing, uh, especially, yeah, again, because I had never really like thought about dancing or really paid attention to dancing before I just randomly discovered West Coast swing one summer. But especially of partner dancing, what I felt from the kind of like the community and like kind of like the joys I've gained from that and just how I've grown as a person, and the ways I've shifted my thinking to be more people like first, thanks to it. Like, I don't know, is very, to me, very inspiring and something that like I would be very pleased if like there was like, if I could spread that to, even just a few people in a small way on like a Thursday night, you know, like
Yeah.
that to me is also kind of like adds to that kind of feeling of like fulfillment and like why I love doing it.
It's funny. I've recently had a conversation with a friend of mine who's talking about she listens to this podcast about making what's the word? Sorry if you can hear the train behind me. I don't know if it's super loud or not.
No, I don't hear it.
But making time to do like making time for ceremony in the modern day, and not religious ceremony, but ceremony in general. And it was interesting. That had kind of been on my mind. And then at the breakaway at the open house the other day, when there's a gal up there talking, and she said, this is our church. And I was like, whoa. It was just kind of cool that I was like, yeah, this is something that we all like, it more or less, but to varying degrees for different people, but it's like something that's sacred for a lot of us. And yeah, that I feel like that falls in line with what you were sharing a bit.
Yeah, I feel like the
um
breakaway especially, they like we like play the Shim Sham and it's always the Shim Sham, at the halfway point. And then
mhm.
if you ever come to the breakaway and you stay till the very end, you will see everyone come into the center of the room and everyone who's like quote unquote survived, to the end of the breakaway, come to the center of the room, put their hands together and go 5, 6, 7, 8, break away. And it's very, very, very cute. And it is
Yeah,
also
it's
kind of
very
like
cute.
church.
Yeah, it's very cute. I was like, wow, this is cool. I don't know how I feel about it being at 10. But whatever works for people.
It's true. We're all early birds now. Yeah, that's a post-pandemic change. It used to
Yeah.
be the dance used to be 9 to 11. Now it's 8 to 10. We all gotta go home and get crawl to bed.
Daisy loves it because she can get home at a reasonable time. So that's
I know
yeah.
we have a lot of further away travelers. I think that definitely contributed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. I've got a few questions that come. Andre asks these questions to every guest that he interviews, so I figured, well, I
Okay.
gotta keep up with that. So, first question is, what, if any, swing dance events are you planning on attending for the rest of the year and maybe next year?
I just came back from 3 weeks of international travel, and so it's crazy to think about traveling again anytime soon in my head. But I'll be teaching at Stormy Weather Jazz Fest, the
Same.
New Year's event. Yeah, in
That's awesome.
Seattle. And then I believe Sam and I are also, I believe, slated to teach at Salt City Stomp
Oh,
in
cool.
April sometime next year. I don't know if that's been announced, but it was like supposed to happen and then got postponed.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but yeah, and hopefully, I believe Swing at the Savoy 2024 is coming back. So fingers crossed everything goes there. And
I'm
then
so mad. I got
yeah.
hired for the cruise and I have to miss swinging at Savoy.
Oh no.
I mean, it's
That's okay.
also
Cruise is
it's a
rad.
7 day cruise that like
Yeah, that's awesome.
but I have to miss Hot Rhythm Holiday and swinging at the Savoy, and I was like,
Oh
no.
man.
So
Oh, I'm sure you'll cry lots of tears into that big ocean while you're on that boat.
okay,
Uh,
I'm gonna stop complaining. Okay, cool. Next one is, if you would like, where can people find you, more information about you, your teaching, or your socials, those sorts of things?
um, you know, uh, I am not on that many social medias. I guess I have like an Instagram that you can follow, but there's not really much dance content there. Also have a website, but it's not live. It doesn't update. So, find me at a local dance near you.
The Breakaway. What's
Yeah.
the Breakaway's website?
Breakawayswing.com. Yeah. If you're ever in Oakland, come to the Breakaway. It's a load of fun. If you're ever at an event that I'm at, find me at late night all the way until it closes.
Just don't spring a switch dance on Calvin. Well, cool. Awesome. And then the last one, a little bit deeper question, but what is a message that you would want to leave with all the swing dancers that are listening?
Oh boy, one message. What's the character limit? No, just kidding.
It's a 20 words. It's like D&D.
If I could leave one message, I think I would just say, I mean, if you're a swing dancer, maybe you already feel this, but like, I guess I would just say like, keep appreciating all the people in the swing dance scene, no matter how, kind of like big or little, or like how deeply or not as deeply integrated into the scene they may be. I think one of the greatest things I love about the swing dance scene is like all the people in it. And to me, that like includes even just the people who are here on a first date that's going smashingly bad and will never come back. I appreciate all of those people too, unironically. But yeah, I think local scenes make Lindy Hop thrive. And so, appreciate your local scene, your local organizers.
That's awesome. I 100% can get behind that. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I wish we had time to dive into more. We didn't even talk about gamifying the learning of Lindy Hop, which we'll have to do next time we hang out.
Yeah, and how so excited to hang out more now that you're in the Bay in NorCal.
Yeah, I'm stoked. It's the realization that I could ask you to compete. I was sitting there with Laura. I was like, oh, what if I ask Calvin? And she's like, do it right now. Text him right now.
Right. That's awesome. That was so much fun.
It was such a good time. So much fun.
I still have the romper. I'm so excited.
So
wear it all the time.
I probably shouldn't. I'm thinking about, so there was the Midtown Stompers competing at I was thinking about making my own team called the Midtown Rompers.
And make everyone wear romp. That would be amazing. Wow.
So
if you say it on the first day, like as people are applying to join, like, then they can't, then everyone's committed. Yeah. Then everyone has plenty of time, however long the practices are, to get themselves a romper.
Exactly. So, all right, we'll go ahead and end the recording here. Thank you, Andre, for the opportunity to be a guest host on your podcast. And Andre, again, I also just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing in the community and getting people's voices out there that are not like there's something to be said about sampling a bunch of different voices, not just the rock stars. Not that Calvin isn't a rock star, but I think it's cool that you're interviewing so many amazing people and amazing members of this community that really make this thing chug. So I think Andre asked me to promote a little bit of my things. If you're interested in seeing what I'm doing in the community, you can go to youtube.com/pauldances. I've got a vlog that I'm uploading episodes every 2 weeks, every Thursday or every other Thursday. And then I am still doing a whole bunch of live streaming of dance events and dance practices and social dancing. That's twitch.tv/pauldances. And I have a Patreon at patreon.com/pauldances if you want to support me there. But otherwise, I just love to have your viewership and your participation in chat and that sort of thing. So thank you for watching, everybody. And thanks again, Andre. And thank you, Calvin. This was really, really delightful.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. The music you are currently hearing is called Dances in the Night by Papa D. You can find all its links down below. Till next time.
Don't lose hope, trying to stand tall, trying to give this dance of yours the best that you got, cause every time that they hear this sound, that music gets their feet above the ground. Time just seemed to stop in every move. Seems all your life what is based on tonight, and all you gotta do is do it right. You gotta move, you gotta move, you gotta move, move, move. Got to be a dancer.